Okay, so it's good to have you back, Carl, the most requested guest on our show. What's up?
Always good to be back. Thanks for inviting me again, Ali.
Carl, we have a lot on our plate today, so let's get through just one by one. Firstly, foreign Indian foreign minister just visited China. Um, Trump and Russia is going through a new zone, and Trump and its tariffs and threats. So let's first get the Indian foreign minister thing out of the way. Why was he there, and what has happened during this meeting?
Well, there has been Washington has been exerting tremendous pressure on India lately in the last couple of years, because India have refused to fall in line with the NATO alliance on putting sanction on Russia, particularly purchasing Russian oil and gas. And this caused India to seek a soft reproach bond with China. You know, I'm pretty sure you have heard. Trump just gave a ultimatum, 50 days ultimatum to Putin. Says, you better wrap up the Ukraine war, and and in addition, Trump have threatened to put on 500% tariff against BRICS members who trade with Russia. He is threatened to place secondary sanction against Russian oil, which means anybody who purchase oil will now receive 500% tariff from United States. I mean, that would include India, China, and Brazil. Um, so so because India is on the list, this is one of the reason foreign minister of India is probably in China to coordinate their response and to calm the tension a bit, because there have been rising tensions between China, India, within the BRICS membership. So I mean, I think the move, the groundwork was already laid, more than a month ago, for this type of soft rapprochement. That's when uh, India leadership had repeatedly said, okay, we don't need to have a, there's no fundamental difference between India and China. We can work together. Again, this is kind of India's strategy, kind of positioned itself in the middle of a geopolitical competition between China and United States, right? India, by um, being the player that's being wooed by on both sides, is stood to gain, right? From U.S., you expect U.S. to open market, U.S. Possibly selling advanced weapon technologies. Yet lately that hit a snag because U.S. have been putting trade sanctions on India, and even as Apple tried to shift some of the iPhone production from China to India, um, just to satisfy the U.S. market. Apple had a plan that they're going to manufacture all the iPhones they sell in U.S. in India. That will be about 26% of the iPhone production. But Trump publicly tweeted out, that's not acceptable. I don't want iPhone to be made in India. I want iPhone to be made in United States. And in addition to all the tariffs that Trump is putting on India, this is one reason that now it's driving India to seek a rapprochement with China to cool off the bilateral tensions.
We've also been watching some news. Indian's chief of staff, army staff, was quoted in a meeting saying things about a new emerging bloc in this region, that is China, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And he was pretty fearful of a lot of things.
Well, this is actually nothing new. I mean, China traditionally have excellent relationship with all the neighbors of India. That's whether Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or Maldives. And there's always a fear among the Indian national security establishment that they're being surrounded. They somehow China is trying to contain them merely by working with their neighboring countries. I mean, I think a more productive use of Indian foreign policy is perhaps to improve ties with your neighbors, right? I mean, like, there's right now there's nothing says why China shouldn't have friendly relationship with other countries in South Asia. If China, if India feel is somehow surrounded by hostile forces, um, I mean, it's just a reflection of kind of the bad bilateral relationship India has with its neighbors, and why. And then it's time for some self-reflection on the part of the Indian leadership why that is the case. They could easily improve ties with Nepal, with Bangladesh, with Sri Lanka, with Maldives, and even Pakistan. I mean, there's no reason why Pakistan and India needs to remain at loggerhead at each other. This is, we're talking about uh, almost 80 years after partition, right? I mean, so. Anyways, this is but that
Well,
that
yeah,
that
Pakistan has a stance on
needs to
this. You
come
clear
from.
the Kashmir conflict, it's all good. We just want the Kashmir conflict cleared. Once it's cleared, we have no other problem.
Correct, but for India, they have the insistence that Kashmir, it's none of other people's business. They say okay, Kashmir is Indian territory, it's non-negotiable, and we will not to talk about it. We're not open to negotiation about
Yeah.
this. So this is why this is kind of intractable problem, because this is because India, they refuse to budge on this position.
Pakistan actually recognizes that area which China has a claim on. So, but India doesn't recognize either of them, nor the Pakistani side or the Chinese side. So, what is going on between Trump and Russia? We're entering a new zone, and things are flaring up pretty quick. Trump was quoted saying a lot of things, and a telephone call got leaked as well. What is going on suddenly?
Well, Trump had. I'm old enough to remember Trump making the claim that he will resolve the Ukraine crisis within 24 hours of him being elected the U.S. president. Well, it's been more than a half year now, and nothing has moved in that front. And I mean, I do not doubt that Trump's intention, at least from the beginning, is to wrap up the Ukraine conflict, because there is a significant portion of the U.S. national security elite who sided with Trump that want to freeze the Ukraine conflict so the U.S. resources can be redirected to China. Many people have talked about this, including Professor John Mearsheimer, that U.S. should get out of Ukraine, get out of the Middle East, and concentrate on all its resources to try to contain China in the Western Pacific, because China is the biggest threat to the U.S. hegemony. And that's not happening because there's a lot of institutional inertia. It's particularly this big institutional bloc called NATO. All these NATO bureaucrats, all the think tankers, all these Atlantis institutions, all these people's jobs and careers depending on continued hostility against Russia, and they saw, and Ukraine is a linchpin of that strategy. So this is a area where even when Trump wants to extricate himself from Ukraine, but he cannot help but being dragged back in. And the reality is that Russia is winning in the battlefield. And this is an area where I think Trump failed to recognize that U.S. is not in a position to dictate the term of peace. Only a victor on the battlefield gets to decide the term of peace. And Russia, for its part, it has very simple goal. It want to neutralize Ukraine as a possible springboard for the Western alliance to sabotage Russia's security. It does not want NATO troops in Ukraine. It wants a guarantee that Ukraine will never join NATO. And what Russia does not want is they do not want a temporary freeze of conflict like what happened in the past when Russia signed the Minsk Agreement 1 and Minsk Agreement 2, only for NATO to use that as an opportunity to militarily arm Ukraine and to build up Ukraine armed forces in order to resume hostility. And so Russia do not want the temporary freeze, a frozen conflict. Russia want to solve this problem once and for all. This is why they launched the special military operation in 2022. For Russia, this is an existential issue. They do not want this um, the dagger pointing at Russia's soft underbellies through Ukraine. And right now they are very close to achieving that aim by methodically demolishing Ukrainian army in the field. I mean, we have seen Russia have demolished several group of Ukrainian army right now. They're not, Russia is taking their time. They're not trying to make a big push uh, deep into Ukraine. Instead, they're drawing in these NATO armies into kill boxes where they will wear them down in attritional warfare. I mean, it's not even fair to call it like a war of attrition when the attrition is happening on one side. And right now, Russia is wearing down the Ukrainians' capability as as a fighting force, and that's and you also expose a lot of vulnerability of NATO. And NATO is on paper this most powerful military organization. Yet with all NATO's support, Ukrainian army is being grounded down to dust right now on the battlefield. And this is why but Trump, he's a person with a great ego. He thinks he can walk into a negotiation and call the shots. And this is where he's mistaken, because ultimately US do not hold any cards. It's Putin hold all the cards in Ukraine. And so unless this peace term get resolved on Russia's term, there will be no negotiation. And that's a hard fact that for U.S. administration to swallow, because they're so used to be the top dog. They can't accept that to deal with other nations as equals. I mean, this is one fundamental issue with with kind of this three-front war they're waging at the moment, because U.S. is trying to fight to preserve its hegemony, global hegemony. It cannot allow any peer competitors like Russia or China. So, like Putin said in his interview with Tucker Carlson, unless the kind of American supremacy mentality change, it doesn't matter, who becomes a U.S. president, because it will be the same.
Things coming out of Trump's mouth these days are like pretty insane. He's asking Zelensky if they could hit Moscow and St. Petersburg sitting in a meeting. Where is diplomacy? How is the world dealing with this?
Well, suppose according to the leak audio, Trump also claimed that he had threatened Putin on the call, and that he will bomb Moscow if they don't come into agreement. And supposedly he said the same thing to Xi Jinping.
Beijing,
But
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that leak audio is authentic, because that kind of fits kind of the Trump's personality. But whether he actually said those things in the call, we don't know, because Trump say all kind of stuff. Um, but if you look at Trump, the way Trump is unpredictable, but he's very predictable in his unpredictable ways. You just look at Art of Deal, right? He published that book. That's essentially how he negotiate. Just raise the demand sky high to such unreasonable levels, so that people will come to accept your final offer. But people can see through that. So he's so transparent, and this is how why China went toe to toe against Trump in the tariff war. In the end, what happened? We had Taco Tuesday. Trump always chicken out, right? Trump end up negotiating essentially a ceasefire in the tariff war, and now he's saying, oh, I'm gonna put 500% tariff on anybody who purchased Russian oil. Well, guess who purchased Russian oil? China, India, etc. And you just had a trade war with China where you panicked and you backed down and you had to send your Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to go in and negotiate a ceasefire. Are you ready to restart that tariff war again? I don't think so. This is all talk. I don't know anybody who can take Trump seriously at this point. This guy can change his mind in like 24 hours. In a tweet. So we're gonna have to see. I mean, in any case, Ukraine Trump does not have any cards on Ukraine. He will have to accept whatever Russia's term will be in the end. But it's gonna take him time. It's gonna take him time to let that sink in.
How would Russia be measuring or judging the trajectory of Trump in America? How would they be looking at it? They wouldn't be sure of anything.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Russia has actually tried to work with the West on many occasions. In the late 1990s, the early 2000s, Putin actually offered to Bill Clinton that, okay, how about can we join the NATO? We will sign up for NATO. And Clinton actually said, okay, let me check with my people. And when Clinton comes back, said, no, sorry, that's not possible. But which tells you something interesting. Like Clinton being the supposedly the leader of the free world, the most powerful man in the world, couldn't make that call. He had to check in with his deep state handlers, and that's in fact the West. Putin actually just gave an interview recently, list out his earlier mistakes, and the mistakes of the Russian leadership was too naive to trust that you know the fundamental problem between Russia and the West was a ideological one, because he thought, okay, we thought before it was an ideological issue, it was communism versus capitalism. Now we got rid of the Soviet Union. Now let us be friends. They honestly thought that would work, but it's in the end, it's all about geopolitical interest, and it's in the geopolitical interest of NATO to expand its border continually eastwards, because not only that brings more membership into NATO, you enlarge the NATO bureaucracy, it grants more power and more funding to all those NATO bureaucrats, right? I mean, it's jobs and careers at stake, Ali. This is, if you look at the West, that's all it matters: jobs and careers. And so in the end, I think Russia finally come to the realization they have to be the one defending their own geopolitical interests. They cannot trust West as a reliable partner. On things you cannot negotiate on a peace on you cannot negotiate in a peace deal what you cannot want through hard power. That's a lesson they learned, and this is why they're pursuing the special military operation in Ukraine, to which the United States and NATO alliance do not have a effective answer for.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I know you don't like American politics, but we have to do this. What is going on in the Jeffrey Epstein scene now that it also has, people are saying that it has a Mossad connection in this? People on our side of the world, Carl, do not even understand the type of crimes that happen between in the Epstein files. If you could give us an overview, a quick overview, and the status right now. What's the status now?
Okay, Jeffrey Epstein was accused of running a child prostitution ring for the rich and powerful, and this was known for a long time. He was only prosecuted relatively recently, and but there's this it's long rumored that he kept a client's list, and it's also long rumored that Jeffrey Epstein was working with a foreign intelligence agency to blackmail all these important people. Now, Trump, one of his campaign promise was to make public Jeffrey Epstein's client list. So everybody will be made, like he will hold people responsible, right? This is part of Trump's appeal to his support base that he was going to clean out the mess in Washington. He's going to out all the pedophiles. He's going to get rid of those globalized elites. Um, and he did 180. He did 180. Now they're saying there's no client list. All these all these women, teenage girls, Jeffrey Epstein smuggled in. It's for his own personal, satisfy his own personal lust, right? This is nobody buys that, and I mean, even in America, nobody buys that, and this is actually causing a big rift among the MAGA camp. Trump. This is Trump's support base. This is one of the key promise that he based his campaign on. He was going to clean house, and now it looks like for whatever reasons he's completely reneged. And we have the Trump's FBI director, we have Trump's attorney general, all have came to say, "Oh, we have the client list sitting on our table. We're going to make it public any day now." And just for them to turn around in a few weeks and said, "Well, actually, the case is closed. There's nothing to be seen here. there's no there's there's victims, but there's no perpetrator other than Epstein." Nobody buys that. No. I, I think this is. I mean, the fact that there's a big rift among MAGA camp over this is significant because the long held belief is that MAGA is basically personality cult of Trump, but yet now Trump has publicly betrayed the trust of the MAGA crowd. Now there's a lot of grumbling, and these grumbling are increasingly louder and public, and so anyway, man, I don't know why you make me talk about American politics, Ali. It's a shit show.
Do you believe
It's a
that?
complete shit show. It's a complete clown show. I
do,
mean, it's good for entertainment. That's what it's good
do you
for.
believe that Mossad might be in this?
That's very possible. I mean, look at Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, Maxwell. Her dad was literally in the employment of Mossad, and there was a and he actually sued a publication who alleged his Mossad connection. And guess what? He lost the lawsuit, and so this guy. So I mean, that now you have the former Israeli prime minister now tweeting said, "Oh, as a former official in charge of Mossad, I can officially deny that we have used Jeffrey Epstein." You know that common saying, ignore the rumor until the official denial. I mean, this official denial is like a big red alert, big red flag. I mean, it makes sense because why was Jeffrey Epstein protected for so long, even though it was known about him, his Lolita Island so called, for a long time, for decades. And there was actually a Florida investigator who was told to hands off of the Epstein case because he was told he Epstein was related to, he's part of the intelligence. Now, they never report which intelligence, right? Is it American intelligence or Israeli intelligence? These are the questions that the American public are demanding answers for, but Trump is stonewalling right now, and this is why this is now turning into a political issue.
Did you see that footage that they released? There's 1 minute of footage which is missing. How can things like these be happening?
Yeah, now they reveal the fact that for years they told us, oh, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. He committed suicide in prison, and now they tell us, oh, by the way, the surveillance footage, the CCTV footage from inside the prison was altered. Are you kidding me? I mean, yeah, nobody believes official narratives anymore. So it's the American government's credibility and public trust is at all-time low, and it's these kind of things that kind of erode further whatever little trust the public have them in them.